The Irish Times report that a hybrid Leaving Cert this year could require the use of school profiling to ensure there is consistency in teachers' estimated remarks. And I suppose estimated marks rather than remarks. And I suppose for people, just to explain what that means is that they take previous year's results from schools, which are often relatively consistent, and then they apply that sort of consistency to the hybrid marks that the teachers are coming up with. So if you're in a high-performing school, the chances are you'll get a high-performing mark, and if you're not in a high-performing school, unfortunately, you may not get a high-performing mark. What do you make of it all, Shane?
I think school profiling is the worst option of all. And look, I absolutely accept there's no easy solutions to this, and there are certainly no universally popular solutions. But school profiling, I have a massive problem with. I'm thinking of the bright kid in a deaf school, maybe from an immigrant family. They've already often been discriminated against on the basis of their address. They've been discriminated against on the basis of the school they go to. The one thing they should have is a Leaving Cert where they go in and their exam is marked, and it doesn't matter where they're from, what school they're from. They should not be discriminated. And we know from the experience of the UK, from Scotland and from England, if you bring in school profiling, you will disadvantage students from disadvantaged areas. That is the reality. In the UK, in both England and Scotland, they were the ones hit hardest by the downgrades. So much so that in Scotland, the government actually had to abandon that system. So I just think whatever solution happens, we cannot have school profiling. That will really hit the kid who is trying to break the cycle, and they can't be held down by past performances of kids in those years. I think that would be wrong, and I think that would be blatantly unfair, and I think it would doubly disadvantage those kids who do not have all the advantages that, say, for example, my kids as middle class kids would have. Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. And the fact that school profiling does disadvantage those bright kids, hardworking kids in schools that don't tend to perform that well overall is a real problem. But I also think that we have seen, because they didn't do away with all standardisation and all profiling, they did away with school profiling when they made the hybrid grades back in 2020, but what they did was class profiling within the class. And so they said, these are the top kids in the class, we'll let them have the H1s, and these are the more mediocre, or these are the lower kids in the class. And if you happen to be in a really high performing school, and maybe you weren't in the top 6 in your class, but you were still somebody going to get 500 or 600 points anyway, you were disadvantaged. So you had hard-working kids. Yes, they were middle class kids, but I don't think we should be throwing those kids under the bus of profiling either. And I know personally some kids who were disadvantaged in that way, and they were hard-working kids, and they were kids who were in line to maybe get medicine or pharmacy or those types of things, and they didn't get it because they weren't in the top 2 or 3 in their classes. That's a problem too. The more I think about it, Shane, and I've thought about it a lot because I've had 2 kids go through the Leaving Cert already, and I've 2 more that will go through it. The more I think about it is they need to sit the exam. The exam gives them a fair crack of the whip. There's the same blank page in front of everyone. No one likes the exam. Maybe the exam itself needs reform. Maybe the exam and the curriculum and all of those things needs to be overhauled. But there are so many different effects from all the tweaking that we're doing that make it unfair for somebody without the exam that I actually think we need to pull back. There's no public health reason for it anymore. Sit the bloody exam.